Well, good morning. This is Ian R. Crane. It's the morning of Wednesday, 9th of May 2018, and I'm back down in my favourite field down here in the southwest of England. And when I woke up this morning, and just after sunrise, and it was a beautiful, clear blue sky. And then I went back and had a coffee and did some preparation for this morning's broadcast. And when I come back, it seems that every single aircraft in the northern hemisphere has decided to fly over this field this morning. And now we have this sheen of aircraft trails right across the sun. And I'll post up on Facebook a couple of the photographs that I took a little while ago. But one of the things that never fails to really amaze me is that the groups that are very much focused on the issue of climate change never seem to mention the rampant pollution that seems to emanate from aircraft on certain days. The last few days over the weekend, AV9, the skies were stunningly clear. And, I don't seem to be able to find any scientific research which would basically suggest that, the atmospherics cause this pollution to appear on certain days. Anyway, that's not the purpose or the subject of my broadcast this morning. The purpose this morning, really, is where I introduced a couple of the speakers at AV9 who very much moved the audience emotionally, and in some cases to tears. And, one of those was former Detective Constable John Wedger of the Metropolitan Police, and his accounts of his battle with the establishment to expose systemic child abuse. And we will certainly be hearing a lot more about John Wedger and his ongoing campaign to raise awareness of the systemic and suppressed child abuse that occurs throughout the country. It's not just limited to the Metropolitan Police area, it's certainly throughout the country. And apparently I've just got a message to say that Facebook seemed to have turned the camera sideways on. So let's just go do that for the moment. That's a bit unfortunate, but hopefully that's the right way up, at least for the moment. I'll replace it with the YouTube version perhaps a bit later. Anyway, this morning I'm going to revisit the accounts given by the two people in a sort of private Q&A session at AV, because they weren't able to formally participate due to their ongoing legal situation. But I want to introduce you to the MHRA and really start people to do further investigation into the role of the MHRA, the Medicines and Healthcare Regulatory Authority in the UK. Now, I actually did an interview with a gentleman by the name of David Noakes some little over 3 years ago now, and it's Humanity versus Insanity, and I believe it's number 37. It is indeed number 37, and it was called The Cancer Agenda. And I'll post a link to it under this video. But I would encourage people to take a look at that. But let's have a brief look at what the role of the MHRA is, and really who is the prime mover behind shutting down the production and distribution and even the awareness of effective cancer treatments in the UK. And I'll put a few links under the video. But the guy that I focused on 3 years ago in the interview with David Noakes was a gentleman by the name of Gerald Heddell, who has been the Director of Inspection, Enforcement and Standards of the MHRA since 2005. And this is what his resume says. It says, in the role of Director of Inspection, Enforcement and Standards, current responsibilities focus on the quality of medicines in the UK and include a comprehensive surveillance, inspection and enforcement programme, the licensing of pharmaceutical manufacturers and wholesalers, defective medicines reporting, unlicensed imports, borderline products, medicines testing, and the British Pharmacopoeia. And the British Pharmacopoeia, of course, is the document that basically it advises health authorities what is approved for use in the UK. And basically anything that doesn't appear on that list is therefore not sanctioned by the MHRA, who operate without any third-party oversight. Well, that's Gerald Heddell's role today, and he was very much at the forefront of shutting down the manufacturing facilities of GC-MAF in the UK, and effectively working with police forces elsewhere in Europe and further afield to shut down any production or distribution of GC-MAF and the employees, particularly the senior employees and the owners of these companies, to horrendous persecution. Well, prior to taking up his role at the MHRA, Gerald Heddell was the quality director of GlaxoSmithKline in the UK, a position he held from 2000 to 2004. Prior to that, between 1995 and 2000, he was the sterile products director with Glaxo Wellcome. In 1978 until 1995, so nearly 20 years, he was in quality management at the Wellcome Foundation. So, you know, he's not exactly a high flyer, is he? But, you know, he's a steady employee, and, you know, you can pretty much guarantee that he's always going to do what he's told. He is a microbiologist, and he got his Bachelor of Science in Applied Microbiology from the University of Strathclyde. So, what are they doing? Well, I looked at their the last annual report that I could find online, which is from a couple of years ago, and this is what the MHRA brag about. It says the sale of unlicensed medicines and non-compliant medical devices is a of their investigative resources. And this is what they effectively achieved in 2014 to 2015. They managed to sequester 6.2 million doses of falsified and unlicensed medicines, and these were seized in the UK. Now, I can completely understand. Obviously, we do have to have. They've seized 15,487 counterfeit and non-compliant medical devices. Well, there's no more detail about that, but call it a hunch. But I would suggest that it's things that actually work, like Rife machines or violet ray machines, devices that very few people perhaps are aware of, or even the bioresonance devices that have been developed as part of the Russian and American space programs, because these devices effectively they improve their health. They've been proven to enable people to recover without side effects. But of course, unfortunately, that doesn't work for Big Pharma because it has a direct impact on their revenue streams. They've also had 1,380 websites taken down, and 326 social media videos were removed. Well, that's probably going to go up to 328 when they latch on to Humanity 1937 and this morning's broadcast. And then they brag, we have worked on several worldwide initiatives to help protect the supply chain. In other words, to obviously protect the revenue streams of Big Pharma. So how much does somebody who has sold their soul to Big Pharma for pretty much their entire career, what price is a soul that effectively has no real desire to look after the best interests of humanity, but simply wants to protect the revenue streams of the pharmaceutical industry? Well, in 2014 to 2015, Gerald Heddell was in the salary band of £100,000 to £105,000. He was entitled to bonuses of somewhere in the region of £10,000 to £15,000, and his pension pot, the subscription or donation put in by the government into his pension pot was between 55 and 57,500 pounds. So more than twice the national average income was actually being put into this guy's pension plan, giving him a total annual compensation in the ballpark of 165 to 170,000 pounds. So these kind of incentive programs work on the basis, look, you do our bidding for your career, for your entire career, you do as you're told, well, and number one, we'll let you stay alive. And number two, you will enjoy a very, very lucrative retirement where you will be able to retire on, well, at least 2/3 of your final salary, probably more. Or you take a massive lump sum and still have 2/3 of your final salary. So this is the cost to the government and to the pharmaceutical industry of effectively maintaining their dominion. And of course, their dominion is based on sickness, because there is absolutely no money to the pharmaceutical industry in health. So this is what they want to shut down. Now, another factor is, of course, that he's an applied microbiologist. And I must confess that it's not, necessarily my particular area of specialism. But, when I Googled microbiologists, I came across a whole bunch of articles which would suggest that microbiology is a very high-risk profession, because apparently over 100 microbiologists have met very strange and mysterious demises over the past couple of decades. And of course, perhaps the most famous one is Dr. David Kelly. And of course, the circumstances surrounding his death back in 2003 are still somewhat unknown. So, obviously, as is always the case, don't take my word for it. Please, do your own research. And one place that you might want to start looking is the TAP blog. And in fact, the TAP Newswire is one of the locations that published an article, the list of over 100 dead microbiologists. Well, Gerald Heddell, of course, is making sure that he doesn't join that list by doing the bidding of the establishment in protecting Big Pharma. Now, you say, well, what's this got to do with fracking? That's a very, very good question, of course. And these broadcasts certainly started to, keep trying to raise awareness around the wider country of what's occurring in the unconventional gas agenda. But it's becoming surely increasingly apparent that the attack on humanity is multi-pronged. We have the likes of Jim Ratcliffe of INEOS, not on the government payroll, well, not directly, of course. Every time he needs a little bit of extra money for a new yacht, he blackmails the government into giving him whatever it is he needs. Like last time he had these eyes on the Hampshire 2, which was on the market for about 130 million, and he effectively bribed the British government to give him 134 million, which paid the running costs for the Hampshire 2 for the first year in which he owned it. He has a personal wealth of some reported $16 billion, which is about 12 billion pounds, which I don't begrudge the guy particularly. He's a very successful entrepreneur. But the reality is that his industry, whilst producing a few benign and very helpful products, is of course the prime source for much of the world's plastic. And of course, he's bought the silence of Sir Ben Ainslie in the past few weeks by offering Sir Ben Ainslie, and I think it's about 100 million plus in return for keeping his mouth shut. And of course, for putting an INEOS logo on the sail of the new yacht that's being designed to challenge for the America's Cup. Now, Jim Ratcliffe says it's a human right that he has to be able to frack across the central belt of Scotland. And regardless of the effects that his operation would have on the people living in the central belt of Scotland, or 1.2 million acres across the north of England, that's just collateral. It's just the unfortunate consequence of, the people who have the stupidity to live within one of his sacrifice zones. What is it with these people? It's a mentality that is very, very difficult for the vast majority of us to comprehend. Driven by sheer greed, by what they perceive to be power. But the only reason they have that power is because we give it to them. It's because we effectively acquiesce to this outrageous behavior. You know, the MHRA operates with effectively complete impunity, no oversight. They can do what they like. They can shut down who they like. They can shut down bank accounts. They can get police without any court order. They can get the police to go and raid premises. And in many cases, it's armed police to scare the bejesus out of the employees. And then obviously they make sure that these employees will never, ever reveal, what was occurring, or how successful businesses were in providing cure. Oh, I said the wrong word, sorry, because if I make any suggestion that there's any possibility of curing cancer, then I'm contravention to the Cancer Act in the UK, which effectively protects the revenues of the pharmaceutical industry, because it is effectively illegal for any medical professional to share any insight they might have about effective treatments for cancer. And God forbid that they ever suggest that cancer can be cured, because that's going to get them struck off. Well, I've got nothing to be struck off from. But the reality is, people do need to do their own research. And let's recognize that the only reason that sociopaths and greedy corporatists, who are sociopathic by design, the only reason they're able to do what they do is because we allow them to do it. So it is absolutely time for people to really start thinking about how they use their available spare time. Obviously, people have to survive. They have to work. So they have to keep a roof over their head and food on the table. But instead of just sitting down and watching the next episode of whatever it is, or the next major sports event, then maybe devote a little bit of time to taking a look at who, and let's start naming these individuals, who it is that is behind these multi-pronged attacks on humanity. And let's collectively start doing something about it. Now, yesterday, as I said, the individuals who are being persecuted for producing GC-MAF and have proven that this is an effective human protein, and it's surely a human right to have access to a protein, a human protein in which they are unfortunately deficient. And yet, by removing access to that protein, the likes of Gerald Heddell and the MHRA effectively condemn those people to death. So I have no hesitation in labelling Gerald Heddell as the effective state executioner in the UK. Just how many people, Mr. Heddell, have you sentenced to death because of your refusal to permit any research or any acknowledgement of the testimonies of the people that have been provided with GC-MAF at a fraction of the cost of providing chemo or radiotherapy? And yes, you brag about the occasional success, and of course there are people who do come through the chemo and radiotherapy, but it's a very, very small percentage compared to the percentage of people who, after following an effective course and all the subsidiaries of watching diet, etc., of GC-MAF, and the survival rate there. So do your own research. I'm going to put the links beneath this video. But Gerald Heddell, who's been in this job now since 2005 and no one's ever heard of him, his name needs to be known by everybody. He is the man who, if you've got a relative that has died from cancer over the past 20 years, or is currently suffering from cancer, and in many cases really considering that the only option they have is chemo or radiotherapy, then Gerald Heddell is the man that is effectively signing their death warrant by refusing to allow proven effective treatments, to whether we're looking at the telecoms monopolies or the unconventional gas attempts, and it will be a monopoly because that's exactly what Jim Ratcliffe is driving towards, because it's only his personal wealth that really can make this industry work in the UK. All the other companies are going to fall by the wayside in a not too distant future. But the key message is that it's up to us. Well, gosh, these aircraft trail, I tell you, it's not just every aircraft in the Northern Hemisphere now. It seems to be every aircraft on the planet that seems to have found this field here in the Southwest. So I'll stick a few photographs up and you can take a look at that. And yeah, I'd love to know what the thoughts are of those who are really, really concerned about climate change. And I would love to know what the thoughts of those people are about these aircraft trails and the impact that these are having on the climate change agenda. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you for joining me. I'll be back somewhere else tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning. You have a good day and check out the links that I put under this video, please. Thank you.